What's up, horror fans? Welcome back to Bloodbath Horror Talk. Yes, we are back with some more horror. This is gonna be great. This is gonna be terrifying. We're gonna talk a lot about some horror effects today. So, starting with the effects from A Nightmare on Elm Street, the burn effects on Freddy Krueger himself are incredible. You know, those burn effects on Freddy have just become iconic, you know? You can't be Freddy Krueger without those iconic burn effects all over the body. And once you see those burn effects, there's just something about them that almost triggers you, you know? Almost says, why was he burnt to begin with? You know? And then there are the mild effects from Halloween 1978, and those aren't bad effects either. But there's only certain good effects out there. Like, if there's an effect that I really like that is in, like, even a simple horror movie, yeah, I wouldn't put it past the creator to, you know, use that effect again and again and again. But other than that, yeah, the effects from Halloween 2018, though, that's really a level up on effects right there. Some really good blood effects, some really good kill effects, and everything about Halloween 2018 is just golden, you know? Halloween 2018 is probably one of my favorite horror movies. And, by the way, if you notice, the set has changed a little bit. I have a new mask up there for my character, the Porcelain Man, who you saw in a short. And, yeah, pretty much the same decorations, of just a couple of new masks. And you've seen Slasher's new mask. So, yeah. Other than that, you know, there are times I watch a horror movie and I look at the effects just to see how good or bad they are. And Friday the 13th, those effects kind of speak for themselves in a sense, because they're not good, but they're not bad. You know what I mean? Like, there are some great kills in Friday the 13th that really show off how the effects work. And it just really works to bring in that really, really awesome effect for Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th Part 5 actually had some really good effects with that belt kill, and then that kill with the hedge trimmers that Roy performed. And that was a fairly graphic kill that I like. Roy Burns is fairly brutal. Roy Burns is fairly brutal when it comes to Friday the 13th Part 5. Like, you can't go into Friday the 13th Part 5 and then, you know, assume it's gonna be tame. Okay? Like, you can't just assume, hey, okay, this movie's gonna be really fucking tame. And then you go into the movie and it ain't tame at all. You know? Like, how do you go into a movie and discover that this horror movie isn't tame or is tame? There's some sort of fucking imbalance there. But I like some horror movies with good graphic effects, and some horror movies with just some really subtle, you know, effects in the kill. Some kills don't even have to be graphic. Some can just be very, very, very subtle, and I will still love each and every moment of the kill. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, especially the 1974 version, you know, there's a really good example of a subtle kill. You know? Psycho. That kill is... The first kill in Psycho is very, very subtle. And the effect of the blood in the shower is... It gives a gruesome feeling to it without being too graphic or too over the top, you know? But then there are some kills that go over the top, like some of the shit in The Devil's Rejects and Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. Some of those kills go way over the top. Like, you look at the dream sequence in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and watch that nurse get stabbed to death, and tell me that isn't a bit of overkill. Okay? You watch that nurse get stabbed to death and tell me that there isn't overkill in that scene, alright? Because that particular scene is fucking gruesome, alright? You throw a few stab wounds in there, you got yourself a pretty good collective of shit going on. And there are horror movies like Scream that also have pretty, graphic, really great effects. And one of my favorite effects is Casey Becker hanging from that tree, gutted like a fish. Because that is a brutal, brutal scene, and that is just... That is basically the scene that ignited a whole new genre of horror movies. Like Halloween ignited the flame to bring horror movies into the 1970s and 80s. And then you got Scream releasing in 1996, igniting a new flame for horror movies in the 1990s, slasher movies in the 1990s, such as something like I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I Know What You Did Last Summer is a great horror movie, and I still haven't seen the newer version, but I need to. Really need to figure out the context of that one, and really put that one into perspective. And another thing I like about certain horror movies is some elements, because you really got to put elements into horror movies to really actually make them good, and in a sense award-winning, because you want to have an award-winning horror movie. You don't want to have a horror movie that's that's got someone saying, oh no, 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 no. This isn't what I came to watch. I came to watch someone get killed. Now, can I please have the glory of that? I didn't come here to watch someone beg for their life for 20 minutes. I came to see them get straight killed. That's what a slasher movie is for. You watch someone beg for their life for a minute, then they just get straight fucking murdered. And there's a great effect in Halloween Kills as well. That really adds on to the topic of effects. And the effect is when Michael Myers breaks a fluorescent light on a counter and then jams it into his victim's neck. Now that is very, very brutal, and I looked at that scene and I'm like, okay, this is brutal, but it isn't overkill. Alright, it's no Rob Zombie's Halloween, but it isn't overkill either. Because again, you don't need overkill in a horror movie to have a good horror movie. You just need a couple of good elements, a good script, and a well-rounded cast who knows what the fuck they're doing. And a good director who won't get drunk or high on set or anything and just say, hey, do whatever the fuck you want. Because, let's talk a little bit about this for a second. Let's talk about crappy directors. Because some directors, honestly, don't know what they're doing on their film, okay? Because you'll have some directors that'll be like, okay, I want you to do this, this, and this. And then you have a director like Danny Steinman who directed Friday the 13th Part 5. Who was just like, yeah, do whatever you want, I'm here high off cocaine, You just go do whatever the fuck you want, alright? And I'll film it, alright? So, that was basically Danny Steinman's outlook on directing. And then you have someone like David Gordon Green, who directed a great trilogy for Halloween. Halloween Ends is not my personal favorite, though, because I still don't think that Michael Myers should have ever been killed off. I really don't. Because that right there is... Yeah, no, you don't kill Michael Myers off. Nah. You at least keep fucking Michael Myers until him and Jason meet, or him and Freddy Krueger, or him and some shit. Alright, because we gotta have a Michael versus somebody. We can't just kill off Michael without him fighting another iconic horror slasher. Hell, Michael versus Ghostface. Michael versus John Carver. Come on. Are we missing the point here? Are we missing the point? You know, because we're talking about effects, we're talking about crappy directors, and we're talking about other horror stuff that doesn't, you know. Now, the costume is a really big part of the horror movie. The costume is where it's at, and I love talking about costumes. This is something that I really do enjoy talking about, and I hope you guys enjoyed that I talk about it. But otherwise, the costume is... You gotta have a really, really good costume if you're making a horror movie, okay? You really gotta have that character look the way you want it. Which is why whenever I go for a movie character, I try to get as screen accurate as possible. Now, with Babyface and Michael Myers and Ghostface, that isn't hard. Because, of course, Fun World sells everything you're basically going to need, from a mask to the robes at this point that you're going to need. Especially if you want to go for a budget-friendly Ghostface costume. Fuck, just go for a Fun World set of robes and a Fun World Buck 120 and a Fun World mask, and you pretty much got your shit together. And if you're looking for really good cosplay masks, if you're looking to do your own character, I'd suggest Trick or Treat Studios, because they also have some really good stuff. You know, I am a very happy Trick or Treat Studios customer, and you know, I've bought a few products of theirs from Amazon, and some of them have turned out to look really good, such as Michael Myers and the Midnight Killer back there. That Blurry Man mask is a VAT-19 mask. You probably know that already, but yeah, Dr. Laughs, he's another one of my favorite horror characters. I don't even know the company the mask came from, but you know. I have 3 Trick or Treat Studios masks, and what I can only assume to be a Ghoulish Productions mask. And this one sits over here on the desk, which is why I gotta lean off camera to put it back on its stand, or else it's gonna... I have it sitting on a box. The rest are sitting on bottles. That's just how I display my masks, because I have no other way to do it. So masks like, you know, Dr. Laughs over there, the creepy neighbor, you know, Michael, the John Doe killer, and Midnight Killer, they're all on bottles. Oh, and so is a Ghostface EU that I have down there that I beat up and weathered myself. Because I also have that Scream 6 EU, but I also wanted to do my own kind of weathering on an EU Ghostface mask, so that's kind of what I decided to do. EU being Easter Unlimited, as most Ghostface fans should actually know. And if you're not a Ghostface fan, well, then you just learned something new. But yes, and I am very happy with any prop that I have, such as, you know, my sledgehammer, which is actually right here behind me. And, you know, I'm happy with all my prop knives and everything, too. I got, like, 3 prop axes, 3 prop knives, a prop sledgehammer, a couple of prop guns. I'm getting a few more realistic prop guns that I'm going to be using in the skits soon enough. Because, as you know, I care for my skit channel, Devin and Mikey TV, a lot, too, and that's pretty much a branch of this channel, because I show off the costumes and everything that I use to make those skits. But, yeah, there's just something to be said about effects in horror movies that, you know, can't be said about some. Like, all of the effects they used in The Conjuring were amazing. I know The Conjuring was based off of a true story, and sometimes it's hard to get the effect of the event that actually took place, but, for what they did, it was amazing. For what they did, it actually had kind of a spark to it that I actually really like, and, yeah. The Conjuring is a good horror movie. Sorry. The Conjuring is a very, very good horror movie, and a horror movie I really enjoy. And, I don't watch it often, but I really do enjoy it, It's not my go-to. My go-to is literally Scream. Alright, you come up to me, you're like, hey, you want to watch a horror movie? I'm like, yeah, let's watch Scream. The first horror movie I always suggest, Scream. Sometimes even Halloween, but mostly Scream. Because I love the Scream franchise, I really do. The Scream franchise has a special place in my heart. And so does the Halloween franchise. Except for Halloween's 3 through 6, probably. Well, H2O wasn't that good either. So, yeah. Every Halloween movie that came after 3 sucked. Even Halloween 3's Season of the Witch itself sucked. I didn't like it. Nor did I like any of the Halloween movies with Michael Myers in them that came after that. But then when the Blumhouse trilogy rolled around, I fell in love with that. That trilogy was awesome. My favorite, however, being Halloween 2018. And sometimes I like to watch Halloween 2018 as its own movie. I don't really include the continuation of it in kills or anything. I just watch it as its own horror movie. Just like I do with some horror movies. Like, I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake as if it was the first one that came out. Because I don't care for the others. The 2003 remake, that one is badass. I fucking love the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. But, Terrifier, when Terrifier was announced, I was kinda iffy on it. But then I watched it, and it was hella brutal, man. Like, come on. Tone it down a notch. It doesn't need to be as brutal as it was, that's for sure. That's definitely for sure. You really don't need to fucking, with that movie, you created a monster with Art the Clown. Art the Clown is a fucking monster, and then Terrifier 2 just goes nowhere. Where the fuck does Terrifier 2 even go? I mean, I like the movie, but where does it even go? And I have yet to watch Terrifier 3, because I don't know if it sucks, I don't know if it's good, So, I'm kind of on the fence about watching it. So, it's like, shit. I either watch fucking Terrifier or Bluey. And I'd rather watch Terrifier, to be honest with you. I do need to watch Terrifier 3. I really do. But the first Terrifier movie is some good shit, It's good as its own standalone film. There didn't need to be a second Terrifier film. Because now that just throws off the whole fucking thing. It throws off the whole fucking thing now. Now you're actually screwing with things that you can't take back. You can't take back what you did to Terrifier. You really can't. What you did to Terrifier with Terrifier 2, to be honest, kind of sucked, but it was enjoyable. It was still fucking brutal, but it was enjoyable. Okay? And personally, I believe in Terrifier 2 that Art the Clown is a full-on undead nightmare by this point. So by this point, he was killed off in the first movie via self-inflicted gunshot wound, right? He's killed off in the first movie via self-inflicted gunshot wound. Then in the second movie, he wakes up in the morgue and kills the guy in the morgue. You know? So the fact that Terrifier 2 starts with a kill. And the fact that Terrifier 2 starts with a kill is also what's incredible about that movie. Like, not many movies start out with an outright kill. Terrifier 2 takes that and turns it on its head and starts out with an outright vicious kill. Alright? Holy shit. Okay? Holy shit. Terrifier is a brutal movie and the effects are great. Hell, the most brutal scene, and spoilers ahead for those of you who haven't seen Terrifier yet, but the most brutal scene to me is when that blonde chick gets sawed in half from the pussy down. Like, oh my god, that scene is just disturbing, it's brutal, it's like, what the fuck did I just watch? Okay? To me, the first Terrifying movie almost looks like a fucking snuff film, alright? There are some horror movies out there that just look like fucking snuff films. You know? I understand the Blair Witch Project is a found footage horror movie, but to me that could also be played off as a snuff film. Probably. Fucking Hell House LLC. Great example of what could be played off as a fucking snuff film. And as a matter of fact, I really do like Hell House LLC. Hell House LLC is one of my favorite horror movies. I also like Hell House LLC 2 because that's also a good one. I also like a couple of the Paranormal Activity movies. Because to be honest, they ain't bad either. And then the ending of those movies, that shit could be played off as a snuff film from that point. Once the movie starts going into a bunch of shit, and then even to the point where a guy gets his fucking neck broken, we should definitely play that off as a snuff film. Yeah, this definitely isn't gonna get us in trouble. Let's play this shit off as a snuff film. Any movie that involves something that looks like it was filmed on a 30mm camera, that shit should be qualified as a snuff film. Okay? Alright? Because there are some horror movies out there that looks like you're filming actual murder. Okay? Like, holy shit. Okay? There's probably some great examples of horror movies that look like, you know what, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that is a great example. 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre is what proves to you like you're actually watching a documentary of people killing people. Like that is a morbid depiction of any fucking found footage type shit you could get, you know? Because that shit is morbid, it's disgusting, and it looks like people are actually being murdered. When they're not actually being murdered, you know? But it makes us believe that they're actually being murdered and that they might need some fucking help. You know? There is something I would like to see. I would really enjoy seeing, and that is a horror movie where the whole thing is being captured on police body cam. Now that would be an interesting horror movie to me. A horror movie where everything is exclusively captured from a police officer's body cam. And that police officer experiences a lot of weird shit. Okay? That police officer begins to experience a lot of weird shit. And there are only a few good stars that I'd want to see in this horror movie. For one, if he were still alive, Sid Haig. Sid Haig would be awesome in a horror movie like that, especially as the sheriff. Bill Moseley is some cracked out person in an alley shooting up. That would definitely be a good cameo for Bill Moseley, because it seems like he could play a character like that. Given the fact that he played Chop Top Sawyer. Another actor that would be really good for a police officer type role, where the movie's being filmed from the body cam. I'd really have to give it to I'd want to personally see Ethan Hawke in that role of the police officer who's going through all of this weird stuff, and then in some way at the end of the movie just kicks the fucking bucket. Okay, because we're gonna say right now that you knew from the start of the movie that he wasn't surviving. All right, we already knew. We already predicted this shit. He's not surviving. Okay, so it's time to think outside of the box. Okay, it's time we start thinking about this a little bit. How did he die at the end of the movie? Okay, how did he die at the end of the movie? Maybe a little something like this. And this is only a suggestion. The movie ends with the police officer being attacked, his body cam falls off, and it captures the last few moments of his attack where a creature is just fucking mauling at him. And I think that would solidify as a great horror movie. But before that, we watched 30 minutes worth of this police officer going through some weird shit, as if he were on drugs, but he's not really on drugs. And that leads me into our first little break here, so we will be right back. Okay, we're back. So, I want to give another example of another one of my favorite horror movies. And I know this is more of a paranormal horror movie, but I want to give a good example of a horror movie that I love. And a lot of you guys actually may know this movie. It's called 1408. Now, it stars John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. Apparently, this author stays in a motel, starts experiencing a shit ton of paranormal activity where it almost seems like he's on a fucking acid trip. And that's another thing I love about certain horror movies, is that sometimes these horror movies will make you think you're tripping a little bit. And like the Blair Witch Project, sometimes it would be like, am I tripping or did I really just see that? Okay. Like, some horror movies will have little split-second things happen where you're like, alright, am I tweaking or did I actually just see that? Is there something actually there? Or is my mind just fucking with me? You know. There are definitely some really good examples of stuff like that, and that's what I really enjoy about certain horror movies. And I just think horror movies are fantastic, and sometimes even a great family thing. If you're a family that enjoys horror movies, then more power to you. But one horror movie I do find fascinating is Child's Play. Because the effects of that movie are really good. The visual effects, the blood effects, everything is really excellent with that movie. And fuck, I mean, Child's Play is just a good movie, And then the franchise goes on, and as we predict, the movies always Some of the movies are good, some of the movies are stupid, alright? You weed out... Okay, so Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, those aren't any... Those movies are pretty good, alright? Cult of Chucky, I really haven't seen that movie yet. Well, I mean, I've seen snippets of it, but not too much of it, but from what I could tell, Cult of Chucky seems like a pretty good movie. And that's just my opinion, you know, your opinion might differ from mine a lot in retrospect, but that's okay. I really liked the Slender Man movie, to be honest. I really did. I really liked the Slender Man movie. And after the Slender Man movie, it got me thinking, what if they made a Jeff the Killer movie, alright? What if they just made a Jeff the Killer movie already? Like, I know we've already seen a ton of fan films and everything here on YouTube, but come on. Quick pause here. Sorry for that little interruption there, just had to have a little talk with my stepdad. Otherwise, let's get back into it. So, anyway. Another movie that I have come to love is the movie It. And not the original one. The remake. And the Pennywise in the remake. Way more psychotic. Way more psychotic. Like, holy shit. If that Pennywise is coming for me, I better take fucking cover. Because I don't know what he's about to do. I don't know if he's about to slit my throat. I don't know if he's about to punch me in the face. Hell, I don't know if he's about to kick me in the fucking teeth. All I know is I better get the fuck out of Dodge before Pennywise fucking kills me. That's all I know. The effects in that movie are great too. Like all of Pennywise's transformations, you know, all of the spiritual shit in that movie. The effects are great for that. The effects are really, really good in fucking It. That movie is just that's one of those movies that has a special place in my heart. Alongside the original Saw. Well, Saw does have a special place in my heart. I love Saw. The traps are elaborate and enough to scare the shit out of any normal person. Another thing that I really like about Saw is the fact that it mainly takes place in two places. The apartment of Dr. Gordon and an old bathroom where Dr. Gordon and this teenage 20-something-year-old dude are being held. And what I really enjoy is that it deviates between those two locations. Between the wife and daughter of Dr. Gordon being abused by this Zepp guy to back to the bathroom where Dr. Gordon and this other guy are trying to find their way out. It's crazy. And then we learn, and I believe it was Saw 3D, we learn that Dr. Gordon is actually an apprentice of John Kramer's, which is... wow. Like, really? Now, let's talk about Pet Sematary, because Pet Sematary is another movie that I really enjoy. And, you know, again, I talked about it in the first episode, but we're going to talk about the effects this time. Because the effects for Gage are crazy. The effects for Gage are really, really good for a movie that old, you know? Like, it really looks like Gage is undead and just woke up out of the Pet Cemetery and wanted to kill people, essentially. And even in the remake, the effects... And I like how they took a different approach with the little girl being hit by the truck in the remake. That is a neat little twist to the remake that I really actually enjoyed. And the remake is pretty good, too. The effects for the remake are awesome. You know, I really like some horror movie remakes, like the 2009 Friday the 13th remake. I really actually happen to like that one. I really do. Because Jason in that one... fuck. Jason in that one is definitely looking to kill a fucker. And you better watch the fuck out because, well, Jason might just be somewhere and you don't want to know where. So, you know. So, it almost seems like a lot of these horror movies that I have mentioned, we all know they have really good effects. And another quick horror movie I want to mention is Thanksgiving. You know, that movie with the John Carver mask. And next to the Porcelain Man. But other than that, Thanksgiving also has some really incredible effects. My favorite effect is when John Carver cooks that woman in an oven. Spoiler alert. That effect almost made me puke, to be honest with you. That effect, there are some movie effects that honestly disgust me, and that is one of them. And then there's The Hills Have Eyes, but the remake. And the remake, I fucking love the remake, dude. That one is just way more quick-paced, brutal, and way over the top, and I enjoy it. That's one of those over-the-top horror movies that I can really get into, and I'm really like, okay, this is good. You know, from all those mutated people from the nuclear explosions that happened in the area in that movie, to the fucking... You know, it just feels like that horror movie... That horror movie is so fast-paced and just well put together that it's like, okay, so these people are gonna die, but they're gonna die by these mutated freaks that got mutated by nuclear explosions. Which I think is even crazier, because the effects for the mutant people in The Hills Have Eyes are fucking crazy. Like, the Hills Have Eyes remake has to be one of my #1 favorite horror movies, and definitely holds a special place in my heart. There are a lot of horror movies that hold a special place in my heart, like Rob Zombie's Halloween 1. I love it, because it's almost a straightforward remake, but in Rob Zombie's fashion. It's a straightforward remake, but in Rob Zombie's fashion. And I don't know, and this may sound a little bit perverted, but I don't know what Rob Zombie was going for, but somehow he chose actresses that somehow all had nice breasts for whatever reason. And I know that's a really weird detail to point out, but if you go back and watch Rob Zombie's Halloween 1, you could see that almost every actress in that movie has perfect breasts. There is absolutely no way in hell that happens. Because usually in horror movies you see a chick with, the ugliest boobs in the world if they're doing a nude scene. Okay? But then you go to Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and it's like, what the fuck? I'm sorry that got a little perverted there, but I just had to point that out, because that's a strange detail. Like, for real. But, yeah, anyway, it's just... Some horror movies have good effects, and some don't, but... with all that being said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end the episode off here. If you guys enjoyed this episode of Bloodbath Horror Talk, please make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys in the next costume breakdown, which will be the slasher costume breakdown. So, I hope to see you guys soon, and we'll see you again in the next upload.